I looked him straight in the face. I literally said straight to him, this is the single worst idea I've heard in my entire time at this university. Yeah. And his face went white as a ghost. I mean, it was lit. All the blood went out of his face.
He's like, what are you talking about?
And then he goes, what are you talking about? Everybody in my life tells me this is such a great idea. I go, no, it's not. And here's the 5 reasons why. I didn't just say it was a bad idea. I said, here's this, and this. 5 reasons why it's not. I go, who are the people telling you it's a good idea? And he goes, well, my mother, my roommate, my best friend from high school.
Yeah.
And I go, anybody that has a prior relationship to you is completely bad data. It means nothing.
Bias.
Completely biased. It's not valuable to you. You need to say, who is your target market, and go ask the people in your target market. And that's who you need to go ask. He goes, I don't get everybody. So he was just completely flustered. I said, well, just go to this target market and go talk to some people in that who you're trying to sell to, your actual target market. He goes, I'm going to go do that and I'll be back really quick. And he came back, sat down, and he sits down and goes, you were right. My idea sucks. It sucks. I can't believe I thought it was a good idea. It says, I need to hang around you more. He became my TA. And the end of that story is after becoming my TA, he learned the right way to do things. He joined up with some folks and he became a multi-millionaire.
Yeah. Welcome back to the Startup Ignition Podcast, everybody. I am Tyler Richards. This is John Richards. We are your favorite father-son duo, probably your only father-son duo that you actually listen to startup advice from, unless you listen to your own father. That's also a thing. But today, we are here together. We have no guests today, and we're excited to talk shop with you guys. Hopefully, this podcast is helping you. A cool story, like 2 nights ago, I was out at an event here locally in Utah, and someone came running up to me and told me, oh my gosh, I watch your podcast. I send them to my husband. We're both working on something and they're so helpful. I'm making sure that he's watching every episode. I'm like, wow, thank you so much.
I get that a lot too.
So that was a cool, pat on the back shoulder of myself moment. But, it's just really cool that this is impacting actual founders and actual entrepreneurs that are executing and doing things. So that's what we hope this is a practical advice and helpful for you on your journey in entrepreneurship. But let's get into the podcast. This is episode 30. We've already done 30 of these episodes. We've had a lot of cool guests, but we also have a lot of cool conversation just between me and my dad. But today we are going to focus on a cool part of the boot camp that we really, that a lot of feedback comes back from all of our attendees, that the coolest part of the boot camp are the war stories, are the memories, are the personal experiences, the things where we have firsthand experience in mentorship or startups or investments that we've had in our
During
past.
the boot camp, sometimes we tell so many war stories, you have to tell the audience, remind us to move on and teach the principles.
Yeah, because every principle that we talk about, we for sure have
war stories.
5, 10, 20, hundreds of war stories that go along with it.
Yeah.
So that is what this podcast is going to be about today. We're just going to go over basic startup principles and give real life, real world experiences that have come out of our past and that we think are relevant to the topic at discussion. But before we do that, yes. I'm doing an icebreaker with you.
Oh, you are?
Yes.
Okay, I didn't know you were doing it.
Okay. We are going to do an icebreaker. It's going to take a few minutes because we want to keep this podcast episode really short and sweet and really concise. But today we are doing a terminology icebreaker. Okay. This is not generational. This is just simple English versus VC terminology.
Okay, got it.
Okay, so I'm going to say a VC term.
Yeah.
And I want you to quickly, as simply as you can state it, what that means in real world English, just plain English. Okay, you ready? So, unicorn.
Unicorn is a company that achieves a $1 billion market capitalization or greater.
Okay. So in plain English, it's a $1 billion startup.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, $1 billion
value
startup. The company could be, years old, but it achieves $1 billion in value. So all of its shares times its share price is at $1 billion or more.
Okay. Bootstrap.
Bootstrap means to start a company with the founder's own resources and not taking external financing, no debt, no equity sales, etc.
Okay. Runway.
And by the way, the founder's resources means also going out and getting customers to pay.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, what now?
So runway.
Runway is how much time you have before you go cash flow negative and can't pay your bills and you run out of cash.
So another VC term, deal flow.
Deal flow is how are you seeing good quality companies that you can invest in.
Cap table.
Cap table is a simple statement listing all the owners of a company and what percentage of the company they own.
Next one, burn rate.
Burn rate is, some people get this mixed up. There's two ways people express it, but the burn rate should be how much negative cash flow you're experiencing every month. So how much more do you spend than you take in? So if you took in $30,000 but spent $50,000, there's a $20,000 burn rate.
So like the money that you're losing every month, basically.
The
money loss.
Cash depletion.
Yeah, cash depletion. There we go. That's a good one. That was as simple as it gets. Okay, due diligence.
Due diligence is the process of checking things out. It could be in both directions. An investor could check out a founder could check out an investor. It's doing your homework to see if what the person's claiming on the other side is true.
So like investor startup homework.
Yeah, well, validation or verification of truth.
And research.
And truth.
Yeah.
That what the other side is claiming is true.
Yeah. Okay, here's another one. Seed money.
Seed money is the money to get started in a company. They're at an early stage, but now we have the term pre-seed but that's also money in the early stage.
But it's like seed money or seed capital, like really early stage investor money.
Yeah, the company's probably, it's not cash flow positive, might not even have revenue yet.
Okay, here's another one. MVP.
Minimum viable product from the lean startup movement and lean startup methodology. So MVP is where you build a product to get more learning, not even to get revenue, and it has a minimum feature set, and you're trying to find out which features attract customers.
Okay, so simplest form of that definition.
MVP is the intersection of a minimum feature set that has enough value that somebody would buy it.
Yeah, there we go. I like that one. Okay, pre-money.
Pre-money valuation is one of the most important terms. Pre-money valuation means when a founder comes up to an investor and says, I want you to invest in my company, and the company is worth X dollars. The pre-money valuation is X dollars.
So what about post-money then? So how would you define pre-money in simple, plain English and post-money in simple, plain
Pre-money
English?
valuation is what the founder's claiming the company is worth at this time. And post-money is after a round of investment, then what is the company worth, which is the pre-money valuation plus that investment.
Okay, last one. Here we go. Dilution.
Dilution is the experience of realizing that as you take in more equity financing into a company, all the existing shareholders' percentages go down in that company.
So in simple, it's plain English, because I don't think anybody who had no idea what startups or investment would understand that definition.
It's as you take in...
Like you're explaining it to an 80-year-old grandma.
As you sell more ownership in your company to outside investors, the existing investors' percentage of ownership goes down, relatively speaking.
Yeah, so share shrinking.
Yeah, it's diluting. Just like if you have concentrated soap and you add water to it, there's less
diluting.
soap in the mixture.
Yeah, but there we go. Okay, so hopefully that was some plain English terminology that we could share with you guys, so you understand these VC terms a little bit better. But they are kind of complicated. But you could tell that all these words, like if you didn't know what they mean, dilution, pre-money, MVP, seed money, burn rate, deal flow, bootstrapping, unicorn.
Can I speak to our viewers and listeners?
Yeah.
It's super important that not only you're passionate about a great idea that's going to change the world, but you learn the business side of business so that you can understand ownership, equity, financing, and these terms, because that's also a part of success. I've seen many entrepreneurs with a great idea and passionate, and they don't get to the finish line and reap the rewards of entrepreneurship because they don't understand all of the business documents, the financing issues, and all those things that can be a little boring.
Yeah. So you got to get well versed in that if you're going to go.
You need to do both sides.
Yeah.
Passion, great product, change the world, and how do I preserve the valuation and the equity and keep things so that the entrepreneurs and founders get rewarded.
Right. Okay. So that was our icebreaker, just real quick there. Some VC terminology converted into some plain English for those that might be just starting out or just budding in this journey. So hopefully that helped everybody out there. We had fun doing it. Okay. So we in our boot camp, we have recorded our boot camp that we've ran now multiple times. And part of our online software platform on our website at startupignition.com, we have created a library of videos. So we've chopped up, the hours and hours and hours and hours of video teaching footage that we have over the course of the last 10 years. And we've created snippets of videos. And in that library, the most popular videos in our library are always the stories.
The war stories.
Yeah, the story where we teach a principle, but then we've made like a 5-minute video about the story that correlates with that principle. And those, us as admins, we can see the view count on all of the videos in our library, and those are always the most watched videos. We talked to somebody just recently. They said, yeah, all I did was go and watch all the stories. I love John's stories. I love Tyler's stories.
Yeah, one entrepreneur told me he gathers his team around and just watches the war stories.
And watches the war stories on our library of our content library online. But so today, what I thought I would do is I'd propose a couple of principles to you. And I'm cheating a little bit because I know a lot of these stories and I've heard them multiple times, but you have endless amount of stories because you've mentored thousands.
Because I'm OG. I'm the old guy.
Yeah. And you've probably mentored thousands. I've mentored hundreds. And, we have a big, long list of resumes of startups that we've been, involved with. But I'm going to propose principles to you for this quick, short podcast today. And I would love you to say, okay, here's the principle in action, or here's a story that comes to mind when I talk about this principle, and maybe just teach me and teach our listeners and viewers just about that principle, but via these war stories, because they're so intriguing. And so I'm going to start off with, I know something that we've talked about on the podcast before, which is equity ownership, and that, we preach this. I'm now teaching a class at a university, and the students are constantly asking me how to divide up the equity ownership and how to divide up amongst co-founders. And an infamous line is that you always preach is never do 50-50, never have equal partnerships, because that just causes problems. So first of all, tell me the principle behind that, and maybe going into, cutting up and slicing the pie around a startup. Why do you not do 50-50? And tell me of an experience or a story that first comes to mind about that principle and the why behind it.
Okay. So the reason we don't do 50-50 is because
or 25, 25, 25, 25.
Yeah, that's the same.
Or third.
Four people at 25, 25, 25, 25.
Even
or three
splits.
people at third are all problematic. But 50-50 is the principle, and you can look this up on the internet, and it's the only wrong answer for how you divide up equity. 50-50 just leads to a lot of problems. Companies are not meant to be a democracy or decision-making by committee. And that's what will happen when you have equal shares, 50-50, or 4 people at 25%. And you don't want to have stymied decision-making so that the company doesn't make decisions and go forward. A lot of people said, well, unless all of us are unanimous, we're not going to do anything. Well, that's interesting. So you're not going to do anything. Mm-hmm. You need to do something. So basically, companies need to be a benevolent dictatorship. There needs to be one person who has the final say to say, this is what we're doing. We've taken in all the advice. We've heard everything, looked at all the data, and this is what we're going to do. And that's much more comforting. As an investor,
the CEO that calls the shots.
Yeah, as an investor, I would never invest in a 50-50 company because I don't want the brain damage that's going to come.
But I think that's because you've seen what happens.
Yes.
Because you have the history in your past that you've seen why those blow up.
Yeah, so this is the very first principle we teach in the boot camp, and it's really important. Now, here's an example. I have permission from people to tell these stories.
But don't get me wrong. Solo entrepreneurship is not the way to go. You definitely want co-founders. You want partners.
If you're doing a highly scalable venture, you can't do it as a solo.
Yeah, you have to have co-founders.
Solopreneurs don't do that.
So don't misconstrue this principle of, I don't need partners or I don't need co-founders, but you do, but you need to do it correctly.
Here's a simple example. If I had 4 founders and they each had 25%, I would run away from that. If instead it was, the primary founder, who's going to be the CEO, maybe whose idea it really was, but a primary founder had 60% and the other 3 had 20%, 10 and 10, that already is so much better just on that.
So when you think of bad 50-50 splits or even equity splits amongst co-founders, who first comes to mind?
There's so many.
I know, but number one.
I'll tell you, number one is this, because it's one of my favorite people. I won't say her name, but she had started a company in college. And first month.
By the way, I think most people who you tell these stories about, they own up to.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think they would be embarrassed.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's valuable to shout them out, or if we
she's
should
given me
keep them
permission to tell it in the boot camp. I'm not sure about in the podcast.
Yeah, it's a little bit more of a stage.
A little more stage. Yeah. So anyway, she, I knew her when she was a young girl, and she came to college and she started a company. First month, 40,000 revenue. She was catching on to an idea that was really timely. And it was a product. So it was e-commerce, selling direct to customer, direct to consumer, and through e-commerce channels. And over the next first few months, it was growing. And then she needed help. She needed help with fulfillment, with picking and packing, and just doing everything in a scrappy e-commerce product startup.
Just doing everything that you need to do for an e-commerce brand.
And so she found a person in her social circles. And matter of fact, had the exact same name as her, first name. And so they decided that the second person was going to join the company. The first one, the primary founder, had no idea what percentage to do or give, and made the mistake of going 50-50.
Yep.
And going 50-50. And so the company's going along and it's growing. And all of a sudden, the second one says, actually, she's got to leave the company because her husband is moving 1,000 or 2,000 miles away with a new job. And that caused problems because she has 50% of the company. And they also had not put in place a mechanism for solving that problem, which is a whole nother issue. But just by 50-50, how do you make a decision on how you're going to handle all this? And they got to not getting along.
So they wanted to both still be involved in.
Well, did the second one that got 50%, she's going to leave. Is she going to keep her 50% and not do any of the work? And that's a problem. And so they had to decide what they were going to do. And so literally, they just disagreed. And they weren't the worst I've ever seen, because I've seen cases where they become mortal enemies and nuke each other as best they can. This one was not quite that bad, but it was still tension filled. And so as what happens in a lot of these cases, they went to their attorney, the venture attorney that they were working with. And the solution is often, believe it or not, where each partner writes down a number in there and seals it in an envelope that they would sell for.
Like a money value?
Yeah, that they would sell for. And that they would take to be bought out of their 50%. And then they open the envelopes at the same time. And the one that has the lowest number is the one that gets bought out. Okay. Or vice versa. It could be if the other one's a higher number, then you buy out. You decide how that's going to be done. And you open the envelopes at the same time and decide which way you're going to go and who gets to buy each other out. So, and that happens. Sometimes people aren't happy with the result there, but they agree in advance. Whatever happens, happens. And they live by what they agreed when they open those envelopes in front of the attorney. Well, this time, the second person in this story that came on later didn't want to have them open at the same time, wanted the first person to open the envelope first. And if the second one liked it, they were going to buy out the primary founder. And she wouldn't agree to it and just keep a stalemate going. So the first primary founder agreed to that. Envelope was opened. The second one said, I'll take it. And the primary founder lost her company in that mode and had to sell out to the other one, and the other one got the company. That was a really sad outcome, but that's what happened.
Did she get paid well, though? Do you know?
She got some money, but she lost
Did the company go on to success?
I think the company went on and she kept going, and I think a year or two later, I realized it was there. I've seen these stories play out so many times. If I ever talk to a group of 30 or more, at least 3 come up afterwards and said, I'm one of those people that did 50-50 and it's a nightmare. It almost always ends up in a complete nightmare. Have I ever seen a 50-50 work out? I'd say about, in all of my comings and goings, about 2 or 3 times.
Yeah. What about in that scenario, let's replace maybe the 50% second co-founder with an investor. So have you ever seen it in your career where there's a founder or a founding team that has taken money with maybe the wrong investor or a misaligned investor or had a bad investor scenario?
Or gave too high of a percentage to the investor?
Or gave too high of a percentage?
That's all the time.
So because, if you take money from a misaligned investor, that can also really mess things up and be a bad partner.
So here's a story for that. So there was a fellow that went through a tech accelerator I had founded called Boom Startup years ago. And this entrepreneur took a $100,000 investment very early while he was still in the accelerator, didn't run any of the paperwork or anything, buy any mentors or anything, signed the paperwork. And a few months later, after the accelerator was over and he was getting some traction, he actually landed a deal with the number one company he could have possibly landed a deal with. And he was so excited. And he told the investor, and the investor said, "Wait a minute, we don't want that customer." And the CEO goes, "What? What are you talking about? This is the best customer we could ever get." And the investor goes, "You need to read the investment documents we signed." And hidden in the investment documents was a paragraph saying that the investor had the right to veto any customer.
Oh my gosh.
And it turns out that the investor ends up being a competitor to this number one customer the company could have signed up.
He was trying to get insider information.
And he didn't want, and so he said no to that customer. And the CEO, after it was all said and done, literally just walked away from the company and quit and gave it to the investor entirely and left.
The founder just walked away.
Left.
He's like, "Well, you're going to hold me back from any deal I'm trying to make or any business I'm trying to drum up. I'm out of here."
And you know who this is, and you know him pretty well.
I don't know who that is.
Yeah, you will if I told you.
Oh, dang. Well, whoever that is, I'm sorry. That's a horrible situation. So yes, so co-founders and founding teams, you need to do that properly. Investors, you need to read paperwork. So not probably the terms on that $100,000, probably getting investment while he was going through the accelerator wasn't great already. And then two, the actual terms around the control
I don't remember.
investor had.
I think the percentage you got was okay. And it wasn't bad, but that you got to read every paragraph.
Yeah. So that's,
especially if the investor prepares the documents, you got to make sure you have an attorney read your documents and say, find any stinger in there that could bite me in the rear end.
So those are both great stories. So hopefully you guys are
There's more, but we can move on to the next one.
Let's move on because I do want to keep this podcast semi short so you guys don't have to be listening.
I'll tell one.
Okay,
more,
what one? About what topic?
Really fast. So, and you know this guy too. He had a remote co-founder 50-50. She was female. She was the tech. He was the business. And they came at odds, didn't agree on things, stymied the company. And literally he went to hire an incredible person onto the company. She vetoed it and said, "You can't hire him." He goes, "What are you talking about?" All these things. They got in a real fight. Literally, he had to go hire the meanest bulldog attorney you could ever find, a female attorney that just went after his female co-founder, and he had to really be tough, and it nuked the entire relationship. Of course, it went and all that. And after 1 year of legal machinations, a year lost of life, and in the company, she finally threw in the towel with some relentless legal work, and he had to pay her only $400, and she walked away.
Yeah,
but took a year.
Yeah. So, man, is that just because of the remoteness that was that way?
I think just she felt the new employee was going to come in and help on the tech side, and she didn't want him on the tech side.
Yeah, that's crazy to me. You would think that she would want more support and welcome that with open arms. So that's crazy.
Humans are humans.
So, okay, moving on to another principle here, and because we can learn from bad co-founding relationships, bad investor relationships. What about hires? What about team members that maybe aren't necessarily co-founders, but maybe first initial hires, bad hires, or too early hires? I know that's a principle that you always teach in the boot camp is that you can't just hire on people to be these white knights that come and save the companies. Mm-hmm. Specifically, like a CEO or a founder of a company doesn't like sales. That's a very common situation where they offload the task of sales and say, "Hey, I raised some money. I have some money in my pockets. I'm going to go hire this white knight salesman who's going to come in and figure out sales for me."
Yeah, there's even more. Let's start at the very beginning. So the first principle I'd share on this is Don't just make your roommate, because he's your roommate in college, your CMO, Chief Marketing Officer. Don't just give somebody because they're in your roommate in your dorm or wherever a position in your startup.
Or like
you might have a great idea and onto something.
Your cousin Brad.
Yeah, you just don't do that. Second thing is, do you really need, and you've seen this many times, does a founding team need a person, I'm in charge of marketing, I'm CMO? That's not needed in most startups at the beginning at all. And you've seen, you personally, because even in all of you and I and all the activity we've had, how many times have we seen that early marketing or salesperson that's not a CEO is too early in the company, and they're a waste of equity and a waste of time.
Number one that comes to mind. I have one that comes to mind.
I have a lot. So tell one that comes to mind, because probably one of mine.
I mean, we just had a recent company that there was 3 co-founders, and one was tech, one was CEO, and one was CRO, which is the chief revenue officer. He was brought onto the team
of a 3-person company.
Of a 3-person company to specifically...
By the way, who should be the chief revenue officer of a 3-person company?
The CEO himself.
CEO, yeah.
But the CEO decided that it was not something he was strong at, so he brought on a CRO. That CRO was remote in an office in California, while the rest of the team was here locally in Utah, working, grinding out, doing customer validation, building out the product. But the CRO's, the main task was to review the product, see what it does, and go and sell it, right? 6 months, 12 months, almost 18 months go by that this company, since fundraising, that they raised, hundreds of thousands of dollars around, funding the CRO and a big salary because he came from a nice, awesome sales position at a previous company.
And who got most of the sales?
And that CRO, after 12 months of being in that company, almost to the 18-month mark, was almost responsible for less than 5% of the sales.
Yeah. So who sold the CEO?
What?
The seller was really the CEO.
The seller was CEO. He knows who I'm talking about here, and probably if you're listening to this, they know who we are talking about too. But anyways, and
it's not that CRO's problem or fault. It's actually more on the CEO not knowing what he should do.
And after unveiling this and seeing this, they had lost 18 months of time, had spent almost 95% of the money that they raised on that fundraising round, and they were up a creek without a paddle. And that CEO knew of his sins and repented of his sins and quickly axed that CRO and took the sales, responsibility back under his wing.
And now they're flourishing.
And now they are flourishing. But for 18 months of time, almost 18 months of time, they were distracted, floundering, couldn't find product market fit, so they thought, but it was because that CRO was not pulling his weight.
So one of the most successful entrepreneurs we've had on this podcast in the past few episodes, if you go back, I'm not going to say who it is.
Well, we've had a lot of successful people, so who are you talking about?
So when he started his first company, his roommate, he made CMO.
Uh-huh.
He had to fire his friend and roommate after about a year in the company. Just wasn't the right fit. It was too early, not a good thing. So this is real. It happens all the time. Did that company go on to greatness and stuff afterwards? Big time. But that was really holding him back. It wasn't the right thing. It was too early for that. And it's not that CMO's problem or that individual's problem. It's actually the founders need to know the principles involved.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and a lot of people will say, if you have the money, you can hire this or that. And the biggest expense is HR and team, and that CRO and the sales initiative is warranted, and you can push and hire as many people, and it's okay if you have the money, right?
Yeah, but you and I every week come across a new company that raises millions of dollars, gets to a huge burn rate with so many people, and they fail.
Well,
money doesn't solve problems.
A story that is infamous in our boot camp that we tell all the time, because honestly, we are both were flabbergasted when this news broke and when everything came out, was the story of Quibi.
Yeah.
So you remember the story of Quibi, right? Mm-hmm. And for those viewers and listeners who are not familiar, go Google Quibi, Q-U-I-B-I. The two founders were Jeffrey Katzenberg and Meg Whitman. And Meg Whitman is a very famous CEO, was placed at a ton of
H&P, Hewlett Packard, HP, and then eBay.
Yeah, a ton of awesome positions at very big, large companies.
Jeffrey Katzenberg, head of Disney Animation.
DreamWorks.
No, first he was at Disney.
And then he went to DreamWorks. Okay, you're right. And he was just a huge Hollywood guy, and they decided they were going to take on Netflix and kind of be this new TV app.
Pre-product, pre-revenue raised $1.7 billion.
Yeah, 1.8 or 7.
$1.8 billion.
Almost $2 billion. Yeah. Pre-product. Imagine every entrepreneur listening to this right now says, man, you give me $2 billion, I can do anything.
This is the great test of lean startup, because Steve Blank, the father of lean startup, called out this action of raising $1.8 billion pre-product. Will having an endless amount of money almost mean you don't need to follow lean startup principles? And the short story is no,
because the story ends basically 7-8 months later. They run out of money and have nothing to show.
They built the product, licensed a bunch of content, but they lacked one other thing: viewers.
Yeah,
and 7 months after launching, bankrupt.
Yep.
Out of business.
No product market fit. No one wanted it. Crickets chirped, and they just...
It was first called New TV, and they also 4 months into it found out that they were infringing on a trademark and had to change the name to Quibi. And these are super smart entrepreneurs, and again, they didn't follow the principles.
Yeah. I mean, so... Okay, that's another principle at play.
Hey, you and I have made mistakes not following principles, thinking we're special sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, and we preach this stuff from the rooftops, and we try to get every entrepreneur and their dog to follow these principles.
If we don't follow the principles, even like a cardinal principle, we won't make it.
Yeah, because I think there's a principle there too, that a lot of entrepreneurs are very idea driven, meaning that they think they have this awesome idea and they just want to go with it. But in reality, that doesn't matter in entrepreneurship. That doesn't matter. Startups need to be problem driven. You need to find a problem that you are solving, not just an idea that you're wanting to tackle.
We often call that building a pedestal and finding a trained monkey to act on the pedestal. To make that analogy really quickly, and it's so good. Quibi is that way. Everything's that way. What Quibi did was build the pedestal. They went and built a software product and licensed content. Anybody can do that. Training the monkey is attracting viewers.
Yeah,
and that's what they should have started with. Your first job as an entrepreneur is to train the monkey. Then you build the pedestal for your trained monkey to perform on.
Yeah.
And this is all the time what happens.
And I mean, I hear this almost every day on campus that I'm teaching. I have, budding entrepreneurs, students coming up to me. I have this idea for that or this idea for this. It's like, I understand your idea, but at the same time, you're not tackling a big enough market, a big enough problem, or something that's scalable. There's something wrong with it. I mean, in your career, if I were to ask you who comes to mind when I say, who had the worst idea that you've ever heard? Who comes to mind? Maybe without saying names or the idea, because we don't want to be pointing fingers here. Yeah. And I'm sure people will, again, like I said, they'll all own up to it. But who?
Okay, I'll tell the story.
Okay.
So while I was teaching entrepreneurship at a university, I wanted to attract people to my class. So I had a friend let me use his Lamborghini and his Ferrari, park it in the middle of campus, and said, if you want one of these, take this entrepreneurship class.
To market your entrepreneurship
I got
course?
200. It was the first time I was holding the class, and 295 students signed up.
That's awesome.
Okay, so did that. And one of the students that stopped by my signage and those two cars said, so you help student entrepreneurs with ideas and entrepreneurship? I go, yeah, that's what I do. And this is what this class is about. And he says, well, I got a great idea. Can I tell it to you? And I say, yeah, make an appointment, come to my office and let's talk about your idea. So he does it. He comes to my idea and he tells me his idea. And I looked him straight in the face. And because was part of I judge ideas all the time, and I know how to judge them. We teach in our boot camp. But I literally said straight to him, this is the single worst idea I've heard in my entire time at this university. Yeah. And his face went white as a ghost. I mean, it was all the blood went out of his face.
He's like, what are you talking about?
And then he goes, what are you talking about? Everybody in my life tells me this is such a great idea. And I go, no, it's not. And here's the 5 reasons why. I didn't just say it was a bad idea. I said, here's this, and this. 5 reasons why it's not. And he goes, everybody, I go, who are the people telling you it's a good idea? And he goes, well, my mother, my roommate,
My
my
grandma.
best friend from high school.
Yeah.
Okay. And I go, anybody that has a prior relationship to you is completely bad data. It means nothing.
Bias.
Completely biased. It's not valuable to you. You need to say, who is your target market, and go ask the people in your target market. And that's who you need to go ask. And he goes, oh, I don't get everybody. So he was just completely flustered. And I said, well, just go to this target market and go talk to some people in that, who you're trying to sell to, your actual target market. He goes, I'm going to go do that and I'll be back really quick. They never come back really quick when I do this. They say they'll be back in 3 days. They're usually back in 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And he came back, sat down, and he sits down and goes, you were right. My idea sucks. It sucks. I can't believe I thought it was a good idea. And then he says, I need to hang around you more. He became my TA, and the end of that story is after becoming my TA, he learned the right way to do things. He joined up with some folks, and he became a multi-millionaire.
Yeah. Yeah. So he learned the principles.
Yeah.
I think something there is that a lot of entrepreneurs get really passionate about their ideas and think it's the best thing since sliced bread, and they want to just forge forward and push through and like get it done. And that ends up biting them in the butt, but they don't talk to their market because they are a little bit scared of that negative feedback, of the criticism that is going to come from it. So for whatever reason, and I've done this too, where if I have an idea, I just kind of keep building and keep going and don't talk to the market in fear of failure. Yeah. Right. Is there any story that comes to mind of where there's been an entrepreneur who's pushed through, didn't validate, didn't talk to market, maybe because of fear of failure, or honestly just because they thought that their idea was so good, like that story you just shared, but where they actually went through and spent time, effort, money, resources?
That happens all the time.
So what's the number one story that comes to mind of someone pushing through and building without validating?
That's everywhere.
I know that's okay. I have one.
I could tell you some really grotesque ones, but go ahead.
This person won't know who they are. Hopefully I'll disguise this story enough, but you will definitely know who this is. We sat down at a restaurant, P.F. Chang's in Orem, with a very notable doctor in the area. You know this one already. You know where I'm going.
Yeah.
And he was telling us about his idea. He had this awesome idea. It was a marketplace idea connecting doctors and other providers. And I think you were the one that pushed him finally to say, okay, like, how long have you been working on this? And it was like 4.5 years or something like that. Like,
how many times have you started to build it? Because they had been through 3 tech teams building the product.
So he had just been pushing through, like, working on this thing forever, not getting any kind of product market fit.
And usually when that happens, I say, well, how much have you spent with software engineers already?
Yeah, I was going to get there where you basically said, okay, how much have you spent on this idea?
Because the normal answer I get is usually like $10,000 to $70,000, which is bad enough.
Yeah.
But this one was much more.
Hundreds of thousands.
$385,000.
$385,000.
And they lost that last tech team. And every time they start with a new tech team, it was a free, total from scratch again.
So do not be the doctor at P.F. Chang's that has spent $385,000 pushing ahead without validation, without talking to the market, and coming up empty-handed.
He's a great guy, great doctor.
And he will own up to that 1,000% to this day. Yeah. But that is another story that I could come up with that I just think, okay, so many entrepreneurs do not validate, do not talk to the market out of fear of failure, but also because they just think their idea is that good.
What it is the average entrepreneur, the person with an entrepreneurial mind and idea, just is a builder, grower. They want to just build and just get the thing built because they're so sure that people are going to love it and buy it. And unfortunately, that's wrong most of the time. And the failure rate of entrepreneurs is high because of that problem. This is at the core of lean startup. Premature scaling is the cause of 3/4 of all failures. And that means they were doing the right things too prematurely and it killed them.
Yeah.
And building the product. In other words, back to that analogy of they built a pedestal assuming they are going to have a trained monkey. But it turns out that building a pedestal is easy, training the monkey's hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I just barely taught my course today, and I went to, my course is called Creating Software Ventures in the Computer Science program at the university I teach at. And I want to show you this. I have it pulled up because I just went over this, and I pull up because you talked about premature scaling, because I pull up the Yoda quote, the Yoda quote, and Jordan, I'll have you maybe flash this on the screen or something, where he says, fear is the path to the dark side. Fear leads to anger. Anger leads to hate. Hate leads to suffering. I said, assuming is the path to the dark side. Assuming leads to premature scaling. Premature scaling leads to waste, and waste leads to quitting or failure.
Yes.
And I pulled that up in front of my class today, and they were just laughing, but it's so true. It's because these little simple things that you don't think are a big deal. Oh, this is such a good idea. I'm going to assume that I know what I'm talking about. But ultimately, as Yoda says, fear will lead to the dark side and lead to suffering.
Let me look the viewers and listeners square in the face. If you're a viewer, I will tell you literally, the most expensive thing you will ever do is act on assumptions.
Yeah.
If you act on assumptions, it's very, very expensive. You should act on facts, not act on assumptions.
Yeah, because that opens up a whole can of worms of assuming to premature scaling to ultimately wasting cash, burning capital,
Every entrepreneur
burning time.
listening to this podcast right now needs to stop and think, have I spent money, made decisions, acted on assumptions? How is that going? Did you get lucky and it turned out okay? Or did it lead to loss of capital, loss of time?
Right.
And you need to review and say, what you're doing right now, are you acting on facts? Where do you get the facts? If you're only assuming, you go out and talk to your target market.
Right. Well, okay. I want to wrap up today because, we had a couple of war stories here. Join startupignition.com/tool suite. That's where we host all of our videos and all of our content. And you can go and listen to every single war story that we've ever told, that we've ever recorded, just like these today. And they're great, not only because they're awesome stories to listen to and they're in the trenches, real personal experiences, but also because they're just fun stories too. And they're teaching principles,
exactly.
Right? So I hope you enjoyed the podcast today. Join us online, join us on our socials. DM us, message us, email us. We're super open. We want to be here to help. And we think we have a little bit of value to provide. And I'm not as experienced as this guy over here. He has 10x, maybe even 100x the stories that I do. But at the same time, we feel like we can help you. So let us know what you're working on.
You're doing great, and you're the world's greatest moderator. I'm better than the All In podcast now.
I don't think so. He says that every episode, but I don't think it's true every time. But thank you for joining us. Like, subscribe, share this with an entrepreneur friend who's working on something, and see if there's any insight to be had here. Thank you to that female who came up to me at the event two days ago or 2 nights ago and told me you're sending this to every single entrepreneur that you know, and especially to your husband, and forcing him to watch it. I don't know if that's a good thing to force him to watch it, but thank you for doing that. We appreciate it, and we appreciate all of you. So thank you. Next time, hopefully we'll have another amazing conversation. So thanks for joining us. We are done.